Yeah, the goal, you want to turn off just one more second. So when things are going well, like in a moment like that, you want to highlight how the child is responding positively to the parent. Wow, she really liked that when you did that. She lit up when you came over here. And then when it's going well, it's okay to be quiet and let them have it. When you've built your scaffolding up, you can sit back and watch. You don't need to keep talking, especially as we're trying to kind of build these moments for them to be able to do this at home. Can I have the clicker?
You said it was cold?
Cold?
Yeah, you said
Yeah. When it's not going well, I think one of the most important things is to create a non-judgmental stance for the parent. It is really, really hard for parents when the clinician is overly aligned with the child. When the clinician is too defensive of, oh, she, like, you know, as if you know exactly what's going on and you have all this empathy for the child, but really the parent is exhausted and frustrated, and we get really annoying when we do that. So it's like, how do you frame what you're trying to say that still highlights the parent's benevolence? So it might be something like, Mom, you were really hoping he was going to do that right now, but he didn't. And he had a different idea. What do you think his idea was? Comes across so different than saying, wait, Mom, he got upset because blah, blah, blah. They're going to be like, well, I know why he got upset. He's my kid, and I don't care because he has to listen to what I'm going to say. Finding a way to go through the parent to kind of get to the child. We're kind of low on time.
So I want to go through a few slides. I promise to do it quickly. This is not a review of PCIT in any way, even though it says that it's PCIT, but it's using, how many of you are familiar with PCIT and child-directed interactions? I know many of you were trained in it. So PCIT in general has two phases of treatment. There's the child-directed interaction, which is supposed to support attachment and create those joyful moments that Janelle was talking about. And it's also a really good opportunity to teach parents to use their attention to shape children's behavior. The second phase of it is giving commands and then following through with consequences in those commands. And that's still play-based, but a little bit different from what we're focusing on today. So the basic idea is that even when I do this with parents in my office and I'm not doing PCIT, I still pull from PCIT. And what I'm communicating to parents is you want to follow the child's lead, you want to observe them, you want to describe all the good stuff that they're doing, you want to give them very specific labeled praises for the good stuff that they're doing, and repeat some of the words that they're using. And that repeating or reflecting is really important even from the early years, right? So when a baby walks in and says, shoe, right? Like the baby just says shoe, the parent can say, oh, you want to put on your green shoes today? All right, we found one. We got to go find that other one, right? So all of that repeating means also expanding on what the child is saying and expanding on their communication. So some of the things that I talk to parents about are about this power of parental attention, and anything we pay attention to will get reinforced even if the attention is a reprimand. I talk about types of activities to use during this play. Some of the things that you see in front of you, they should be open-ended. It should be something that the baby can play with or the child can play with in any way, and it shouldn't have rules that the parent would then want to enforce, like coloring in the lines or doing a puzzle correctly. And you also don't want it to be something that the parent feels that they need to set limits around. So if parents are not comfortable with markers because they think the baby's going to draw on their face or draw on the walls, then markers are not included in the play. We do a lot of role playing. So I play the parent, mom plays the parent, the child, if they're old enough, can play, starts to play the parent and starts using those same skills. And then I limit it to 5 minutes a day of special time, which is also from PCIT, because sometimes even 5 minutes feels like a damn long time. Okay. In order to make it primary care friendly, I don't use the PRIDE skills that are specific to PCIT, and I got this from a presentation on feeding that I went to a few years ago, and they used comment, praise, repeat, CPR. And I thought that was a great frame of it. So the comment are those, you observe the child and identify every instance of a positive behavior, right? You're constantly describing what the child is doing. And you give very specific labeled praises and then repeat what the child says, as long as what the child is saying is appropriate. Sometimes parents, the child will say something really dreadful, and the parent will say, "You just told mommy to shut up," right? So that's not something we want to encourage. We want to encourage the parent to pay attention to the positive behaviors. And we avoid questions, commands, and criticisms because it's a way that deflects from the child-directed interaction. I want to focus on the thing that I spend a lot of time on with parents, and that is making a list. In part of your handouts, there's a worksheet on identifying the problem behavior, and then having the parent create what the positive opposite for that behavior might be. And then you identify 3 of those, right? Or the parent identifies 3 of those things. And in the 5 minutes of play or the 10 minutes of play that you're doing in your office, because in your office you can do it for longer than the parent can do it at home, you help the parent to notice every instance when the child is engaging in that positive opposite behavior. So it may be playing gently with the toys. It may be using a quiet voice. It may be sitting nicely on their chair. And so no matter what else that kid is doing, the parent's job is to notice when the child is engaging in those behaviors, right? And then how do they communicate that they're paying attention to that? How does the kid know that the parent is paying attention to that?
But then they praise the comments. They praise it.
They praise it. They praise it or they describe it. So it's either you're keeping all the toys on the table, or you're playing really gently with the toys, or you're keeping that bottom right on that chair, right? Those are all descriptions. And then the labeled praise would be, great job keeping those toys on the table, because the more you keep them on the table, the more we can play with them. I also, and this is the hardest part, is teach parents how to do differential attention, right? How to ignore, right? So when the kid starts doing something really funky, I talk to the parent, right? And I say, you're looking at me, you're turning away, right? Oh, but now I see he's playing nicely again, go. Right? And you redirect it. So you have to kind of think quickly for the parent, and it's really important that you're always the parent's coach rather than the person intervening, to the extent that's possible, until the kid pulls the computer off the table, and then you can intervene. Okay. The other thing that is, if you feel like the child really can't tolerate that kind of ignoring and your office isn't set up to manage that kind of ignoring and what might happen, then you find something else to praise. So if the child is banging really loud on those toys, what's something that might still be going on that you can praise? Maybe, right? So maybe, great. So, whoa, you are doing a really nice job sitting. The other thing you can encourage a parent to do is to start describing their own play. Make it really interesting, right? So I'm building a tower, right? I'm building a tower. I'm putting the green block together. I'm using this hammer, and I'm tapping really, really gently. And then as soon as the child shows any interest and starts walking over or starts helping, that is the opportunity for the parent to, again, give that labeled praise. And again, this is, in PCIT, it's less strategic than this, right? You're really focusing on very specific behaviors and using play as an opportunity for the child to demonstrate those behaviors.
I'm wondering one thing, but I have my cat lens on, but also thinking mom lens. I think this positive opposite might be really nice to adapt for older kids, for both the parent, but also for teens who are really frustrated with their parent.
What a great idea.
Having them, the problem behavior is like my mom nags me all the time, and like also shaping the parent. I don't know.
I love that idea.
Because I had a case yesterday where the kid is all like, my mom is too much. And I was thinking something like this might be a really fun activity for both of them to do for the other person.
I think that's a great idea. At the risk of running out of time, have I ever shared with you guys the article that was in the New York Times like a decade ago called "What Shamu Taught Me About a Happy Marriage"? Have you any of you read this or know what this is? So this was she was a science journalist who went to SeaWorld, and she wrote an article about how they teach Shamu, or all the other animals at SeaWorld, and she talked about rewarding successive approximations of target behaviors, right? That's what she described. Shaping, yes, that's what she talked about. And ignoring anything that the animal did that was not like in line with whatever the goal was, right? Jumping up and, going through a hoop, whatever it was. But most of the article talked about how she applied this to her husband and picking up his socks, right? And how successful that was. And then she talked about how she was so excited about it that she shared it with her husband, and then he started using it on her, and that got a little bit more complicated. But I think that these obviously are strategies that can work for any kind of behavior. So I think that's a great idea. Okay, I know we're let me just see. Yeah, we're good. Last slide. I do want to talk about this because there's a way to use these skills to prevent behaviors. And one thing that I teach parents is you want to use these labeled praises and these behavioral descriptions right away, right? As soon as that kid sits down, before they have a chance to do anything rotten, you want to start paying attention to the good stuff, because that might distract them. And and kids, especially the kids who are coming in at 4, 5, 8 years old, they're not used to getting that kind of positive attention from their parent, right? That's going to be confusing for them. It's going to be a struggle for them. They're going to push against it. But if the parent persists, and if they do it at a high enough rate and they do it consistently, eventually the kid's going to get a little bit more used to that, right? It's going to become a little bit more predictable. The other thing that you can do is use these strategies to get desired behaviors, to get specific behaviors. So I want to just demonstrate with you guys what that might look like. All right, so you guys are the guinea pigs as you sat at the top of the table. All right, so give me a desired behavior. What would you guys like these guys to do? What would you like them to do with these toys?
Make something.
These guys. Make something. What do you want them to make?
Spaceship.
A tower. Spaceship.
Spaceship.
How about a shower spaceship? A shower spaceship. Shower spaceship.
Spaceship by the
Okay, who wants to be the parent? Who wants to be the child? You're the parent. Okay, you're the child. All right, so I'm going to stand behind you. And so your goal is to get her to build a tower, right? And you're going to do that by giving her hints. You're going to do that by praising or describing anything that comes close to building a tower, right? Anything that inches forward to building a tower. And you're also going to give her some when-then statements if that becomes necessary, okay? So here you go. So she starts, and what is she doing that's coming close to building a tower?
She's aligning them, and they're I mean, she's already starting to stack them. I see. Yeah.
You tell her. Speak up. You're all ready.
You're doing great so far. You're stacking each block, and you're doing great. Keep going.
You're doing great. Yeah, you're stacking them. Yeah, she really is stacking them.
You're having so much fun doing this, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's sitting so calmly. She's doing that so carefully.
Oh, no.
Oh, that could have been frustrating, but she managed it.
You're doing great. You're sitting in your chair so calmly, and you're stacking each block.
For me. Hold this one.
Okay.
So she's sharing the play with you. She really wants you to play with her. So I think she might need a hint that she's building a tower. So
Okay, yes. Okay. Keep going. What we want to do is, yes, exactly how you're doing it. So keep making these just how you did them. Yeah, you keep stacking the blocks on top. You're doing great.
yeah, she's really stacking those
Yeah.
blocks. She's getting really close
wanna
to
try?
building that tower.
Sure, Mom. Sure, Mommy can help you.
You can be Dad, that's okay. Yeah, you guys are working together so well. You make such a good team.
Why is she
Here.
there? She's like the most cooperative.
I know.
Yeah. You need to start throwing the blocks so I can
Kids like
Yeah, you do.
this toy.
Maybe you could do something a little more disruptive.
All right, wait. I want all the red ones up here.
I'll be like, your kid is fine.
Can you help me put the red ones up?
Oh, that's okay. We can start over.
Great job staying calm. She really
But great, you're doing great. Just staying calm and sitting in your chair.
Maybe you could throw a block.
Here,
What would he do
Here.
if she threw the block?
ignore it.
Ignore it and keep paying attention.
I want the blue one. I want the
That's
red
okay.
one.
We don't have to use the blue ones. But yeah, exactly like
don't wanna
that.
make
You
a tower
can.
anymore.
Oh, okay. You know.
It's a good job following her lead. All right.
Okay, we could start with the platform and
I
then
don't
go
want
up.
the purple one. I mean, I don't want the orange one.
All right. And anything else that you guys would recommend? Anything, if you were the coach, if you were the clinician, what would you coach the parent to do?
If they're having like a hard time, just describe what they're doing. Just point
So what
out
would you do?
describe. Oh, look, you're putting the blue ones now on a line, and then the red ones are on one side, and the green. What is it looking like? I wonder.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then commenting, like, she's paying so much attention and working so hard at this because your attention is really keeping her motivated and interested.
So, she's doing so many things right now that's helping her to build that tower. What are those things that she's doing?
You mean as far as their behavior or with the
Yeah.
actual blocks?
Both.
I see your eyes are really paying close attention to what you're building. And you're
I don't like it.
Oh, that's okay.
All right, and see. Thank you. So and so I think that last comment that you made was a perfect description, right? Like you're really looking at it, and the more you do that, the more she pays attention to it. The other thing you can do just for fun is you can actually get kids to do certain things. So for example, you guys are not kids, but I'm going to do it with you. So I'm going to build a tower, and I really need a red block. Oh, you found a red block. And you're giving me the red block. Thank you for sharing the red block. Ooh, I'm worried I can't put it quite on there.
Put it right here. Right on
I'm
top.
worried I can't do it by myself.
I'll do it with you.
Oh, thank you
We
so
are
much for
going
helping me.
together.
Right, so obviously, this is a very magically well-behaved child. But it also does work with young kids. It also works particularly well if you have siblings, and you can praise one child, and then the other one starts to do it too. All right, any questions? Mhm. You're stretching. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have a question about when the parent has a lot of negative attributions that are very like deep and entrenched. So earlier, Janelle, you were talking about how we don't want to speak like we're the expert. We want to allow the parent to be the expert. So just wondering how you approach it when you do say something like, oh, I wonder why he walked over here or he did this, and the parent answers with something like, they're manipulative, just like their dad or whatever. And how do you respond to that?
Sometimes I'll say like, it seems like he's really frustrating you right now. You really don't like that he did that. I would kind of just first validate, and then, I mean, sometimes that just opens it up to more to, yeah, he's been bothering me all day. Sometimes I'll use a line of, if you could be a detective right now, and you could try and get inside of his head to say, why might he be doing that? Sometimes they kind of soften and are more inquisitive about what the child's behavior means. Or I'll give a line of, if we think about all behavior having meaning, right? Because even though he has some words, it might not be enough to tell you exactly why he's doing it. What do you think he might be thinking or feeling right now that led him to do that thing that's really annoying to you? So keeping the parent's emotion in there because it's real, and we want to respond to it without dismissing it.
Yeah.
So I have two questions, but maybe they're really connected. So how much psychoeducation do you give a parent about this process, or can you just sort of like jump right into it in the beginning of the session?
I want them to be my partner. I want to also acknowledge that this is an adult in the room who I want to treat and respect like an adult. And so I give education. I say, okay, I'm going to ask you to do something that might be really uncomfortable, but I want to tell you why we're doing it so that we can kind of work together. I'm going to tell you a lot about ignoring tantrums and maybe giving time out for things that don't work. But if we think about a kid needing a certain amount of attention, he's going to get it any way that he needs to. So if it's not enough positive attention, we're going to see a lot of negative attention seeking behaviors. So I'm going to tell you a strategy that may sound kind of crazy and may seem like it's adding more to your plate, but ultimately I think that if we do this, you're going to see less of the negative behavior. So I definitely give more pretext.
And then my other question is, what if the parent is sort of like philosophically opposed to this and thinks that, I have my things to do, I need to cook, I need to, I need the kids to just play.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would give a speech similar to that of, I know this seems like it's adding more to your plate. Are you willing to just try something new? Like, it seems like what's going on right now, I might say, is it working? And they're going to say no. When he plays alone, he's getting all of this. Okay, are you open to trying something new? And I'm going to explain why I think that it works. But you tell me, what if we try it and then you just let me know how it goes?
Like motivational interviews.
I mean, I guess I'm thinking more in the context of, let's say you have a short visit and this might be, let's say, your first time, or, you don't already have, like, that whole history with them. Can you sort of just, like, jump into it in some way? Like, let's say even with the earlier slide that you had with the infants, how much would you have to describe to the parent what you're trying to accomplish, as opposed to just sort of making it seem more natural?
I think that in those early healthy steps visits, my approach is to let it come up more organically. So I may be watching to see like what's going well with this dyad, what's not going well with this dyad, and then paying attention to the things that are going well. So in those moments when the parent is making eye contact with the child, is responding to crying or fussing, is stopping, sort of gauging how the parent is behaving based on the child's response. Those are the things that I start to pay attention to verbally.
Planned ignore?
I do differential attention in absolutely the same way, right? Because sometimes the parent is showing those behaviors. They may not be at a high frequency, but they're there, and that's what I start to pay attention to.
Sometimes to help build a little motivation for parents that are just so far away from being kind of like interacting with their kids in this kind of play, I'll just back up and just ask them about, what was your experience like growing up? Like, did you get to play with your parents at all? Was it just you and your siblings? Were you mostly alone? And a lot of times people will say, my mom never played with me. Like, I would do everything on my own and blah, blah, blah. And I'll ask, well, how was that for you? Like, how do you think it benefited you? How do you think it hurt you? And kind of get that way. And most people I speak to will say, well, it didn't really help me. I had to do everything on my own. And, and I'll say, what do you think about trying to give your child something different? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of building it that way. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's actually usually how I refer people to Gabby. And then I attach Gabby to the conversation,
I actually do the same with CAP kids. Like most of my CAP kids when I was doing CAP were pretty young. And if a parent was resistant to play, that's the conversation I would have, and it builds motivation. Because they're able to acknowledge that it kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're usually frustrated, they usually have resentment that their parent never played with them and that they had to usually it's like they were the eldest and they had all this caretaking responsibility. And so, and then you express sympathy and empathy for what they went through and how that was hard for them. And I wonder if you want to do it differently with your child. And they almost always say yes.
All right. Thank you very much, guys.